Over the past 20 months, the world's attention was understandably caught by the immediate health and economic fallout of the pandemic. Yet, we must not lose sight of the longer-term goals we have agreed on globally. We have less than 10 years to deliver on the Sustainable Development Goals. COVID has made this task even more challenging. The United Nations 2021 SDG report warns that the pandemic has reversed years of progress on poverty, education, and gender equality. Eurostat's 2021 monitoring report on the SDGs shows that Europe is lagging behind on climate action and on affordable and clean energy. However, there is reason for hope. The development of vaccines in record time shows what the world can achieve when we work together towards a common goal and mobilize the necessary resources to get there. This is precisely the spirit behind the Finance in Common initiative, which we support wholeheartedly. We want to strengthen our partnership with public development banks to build momentum for the 2030 targets. The European Commission has made alignment to the SDGs a key strategic priority behind every measure we adopt. Sustainable development is now mainstreamed into the policy-making and economic coordination processes, like the European semester. And we have reaffirmed our commitment to the 2030 agenda with very ambitious proposals to accelerate the transition to a more sustainable economy and society. The first is the European Green Deal, with our aim to reach climate neutrality by 2050 and cut emissions by 5% by the end of this decade. The Fit for 55 package we unveiled in July sets out the specific measure to meet our goals for 2030. This is the most comprehensive and far-reaching climate legislation ever adopted, and a clear sign that Europe is serious about the green transition. At the same time, we are also mindful that the transition be not just green, but also fair. Dedicated funds to mitigate the impact on the most affected regions and sectors will ensure that no one is left behind. The second major initiative is Next Generation EU, with up to 720 billion euros in common issuance to finance investments and reforms in our member states. This is much more than a plan to kickstart the recovery. With the majority of funds earmarked to support the green and digital transition, it is our strategy to put our economies on a more sustainable and inclusive growth path. Next Generation EU will help raise the EU's public investment to GDP ratio to almost 3.5% next year, the highest level in over a decade. Yet, we are all too aware that the investment needs to achieve the green transition are so large that public financing alone will not be enough. Private finance will be crucial if you are to meet this goal. Public development banks have a key role to play in mobilizing private finance and channeling financial flows towards sustainable development. Our InvestEU program is one example of how we are trying to encourage this. It provides our partner institutions like the EIB Group, the EBRD, and other public development banks with an EU guarantee of 26 billion euros to de-risk projects of high added value and attract private investors. We expect InvestEU to mobilize around 370 billion euros of public-private investments. And we have set a target of at least 30% of the whole InvestEU program to support investments that contribute to our climate goals. As G20 development ministers agreed in Matera in June, strengthening multilateral cooperation and mobilizing all possible resources will be needed to achieve the SDGs. And the G20 is uniquely placed to lead the way in this effort. So we welcome the Italian G20 presidency endorsement of finance in common, and we encourage future G20 presidencies to continue promoting this kind of coordination between governments and public development banks. Finally, as we look ahead to the COP26 conference in Glasgow, let me recall the EU's commitment to scale up our contributions to international climate finance and support developing countries. This was restated most recently by EU finance ministers, who also recalled the crucial role of multilateral development banks in scaling up climate-related investments and in mobilizing private climate finance. The challenges are immense, but I am optimistic that we can keep our promise to current and future generations if we all work together to finance in common. Finance in common, the achievement of the SDGs and the 2030 Agenda. Thank you, grazie e buon lavoro.